I've been warning you all week that Bitcoin has a bottoming process going on. And again, I did correctly call a bottom over here for Bitcoin. It was not the bottom there on February 28th. I was wrong about that. We went $1,500 lower. We couldn't close below that level. I did warn at that time, though, that if we couldn't flip it around, there was still risk of a bullish divergence developing on the daily chart for Bitcoin. And I warned you S&P was going to follow suit if we started seeing the bullish signals over here. I warned you about it on the 11th and 12th. Now we're seeing the S&P follow Bitcoin. Bitcoin had that 5.5% rally back up to test the 200. S&P is doing that now. S&P now going to follow Bitcoin higher. Bitcoin has likely bottomed, so good chance the S&P has bottomed. If follow Bitcoin and get back above the 200 period, it will likely confirm a bottom. So I just want to show you these signals on Bitcoin. Let's look at the S&P now. Look at the bottoming signals here that were correct. The bottoming signals over here that were correct. Now we went lower, we got a divergence, but like I said, and warned back over here, if we did end up forming a divergence, we go a little bit lower, but then we would rebound back up. Bull flag on Bitcoin. Let's take a look at the S&P 500. Bitcoin's up about 4%, trying to clear the 200 period moving average. Likely have a Fed rally next week, or if we get some kind of good tariff news, as I keep saying, see rally. Now let's look at the S&P 500. The S&P had that peak on February 19th. I told you we had a failed breakout. I told you we were going to top and begin to sell off, but the trend line and the gap fill near the January low. Right about the top. I was right about the sell-off. Went lower than I thought. We took out the January low, and I told you if we did, we can test our 200 period moving average. We've even gone much lower than that, more than I thought we would. I think that a bottom is now completing here. As I've talked about, I told you to be looking for a move. Thursday's video told you to be looking for a rally to the 200 period. We're now beginning that rally, and look what's showing up, just like on Bitcoin. The bottoming signal. We had one over here, but we still went lower, tried to reverse, and it failed. This is just short-term momentum, but again, we're probably going to see a rally up towards the 200 period moving average and eventually try to clear it and see everything flip back to bullish. The S&P 500 now seeing some evidence of a possible bottom. I think a bottom is in. We'll need to see the momentum line here flip back to bullish. The momentum line after we turned down, fell breakout, immediately bars started turning red, and we got the momentum line turning bearish, and it's been there, been that way ever since. Same signals now forming on the Dow daily chart. I get a rally, and we got to see all this flip back to bullish. Watch the video all the way through, and I'll show you what I think is going on. We got it on the NASDAQ right here. Not NASDAQ, the Russell 2000. We got it on the Russell 2000, wrong one, sorry. So again, they're all looking very similar. We got it on NVIDIA. Look at this. We got it on NVIDIA a couple days ago. Again, bouncing off that trend line I've been talking about. But look at this on NVIDIA. This is interesting. The momentum line is now already turning back to bullish. So we could see that happen with the S&P and the rest of the market. And then we get it with the NASDAQ today as well. And that marked this as a short-term bottom with that circle. You just see these momentum lines turn back to bullish, and we're probably going to get a rally going back up to these 200 period moving averages. But I wanted to show you, again, it looks very, very similar to what we saw already happen with Bitcoin. Bitcoin rallied up to test the 200. We're likely going to see the NASDAQ and S&P now attempt to do that next week. Now, I think that again, the bullish divergences are going to play out. We've had this drop below the 200 period like we did in 2000 and 2007. We're going to get back above it. We're going to be watching the gap fill here. Going to be watching the trend line, and that's taking us towards our 200 period moving average in the daily time frame, moving towards this trend line right here. I think you're going to do it. We gapped higher. Is it a gap and go, or is it a gap and fill, or is it a gap and trap? I think that, again, this divergence that we formed on the MACD right here is now going to play out as we move into positive territory, into the positive territory here in the 60-minute time frame. I think that will allow, and we're already moving above the 50 level, breaking the trend line. We got above the 50 level here. So that's where the peaks have been with the counter trends. We are stalling at the 50. Even if we pull back a little bit, can we gravitate up to this level right here? If we do pull back a lot, you've got this gap filled down here. But we had a powerful move, build upon that going into next week, maybe Monday, and then here Tuesday, getting this move up in here. If we get a Fed rally, we can blow past this level and get above the 200 period moving average in the daily time frame. Start moving up here towards our 200 week or 200 period here on the 60-minute chart. Start moving towards the 50-day moving average. And then eventually, I think we're going to clear those levels and move to a new high. So that's where we are on the 60-minute chart, breaking the decelerated channel with the bullish divergence, stalling at the 50 in the cloud. We'll see if we go up to this other trend line and the 200 period, and you got your gap fill. You got your gap fill up in that area. So we'll be watching that. Nvidia rallied by 5.25%. Again, if it can continue, or if it pulls back a little bit and continues, again, that can help the NASDAQ. We're about to get a death cross, though, possible death cross of 50 below the 200. We'll continue to monitor Nvidia. NASDAQ did the same thing. NASDAQ broke the channel, the downward channel here, excluding the little shadow right here, and we stalled at the 50, just like the S&P with the bullish divergence. And we're getting into positive territory now with the RSI above 50, and we're right here, just moving up right at the center line here on the MACD with the bullish divergence. So can we go into positive territory and start getting a big recovery to come back and fill these gaps where we had the gap lower and moving to the 200 period? I think we will move to that 200 period like Bitcoin did, and as we get a rally towards it, Bitcoin is probably going to get a decisive push above it. It's been near that, just above and below that 200 period moving average as we've gone up and tested it. Please support the channel. Please support the channel with the link directly below that allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the charts, you like the indicators, let me know that by supporting the channel today. Follow the link below to take you to a secured site and you can donate any amount you want. If you could take a moment to do that, I would really appreciate it. It would really be encouraging to hear from you. Thank you for your consideration for that. Look, Bitcoin has rallied up to the 200 period moving average, and it's just slightly above it. It pulled back a little bit off of it, and it jumped back above it. Right now, it's very quiet. We're probably going to see the Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday session a decisive push above this level. I think you've got the higher low and the higher high now in play here that's happening, but we need to get that big push up. I'm getting all kinds of bullish signals on Bitcoin that it's bottoming. Now we're seeing momentum try to flip on Bitcoin. Some indicators, and S&P is now getting bottoming signals, and it's probably going to follow Bitcoin to the 200 period. It's got the bullish divergences, and again, now we're seeing the MACD get a bullish cross. So again, you're likely going to see a big push above the 20 period, and Bitcoin will blow past the 200 period and go above that 20 period, going above the 200, which it is a little bit, but not a decisive push above it, but it is slightly above it. It is closed above it here with the Saturday session. Now we're in the Sunday session. We'll see the S&P rally towards the 200 and the NASDAQ rally towards the 200. So just want to make sure you know, stock market is going to follow Bitcoin higher. Bitcoin had the topping signal over here in January, and we're now getting these back-to-back bottoming signals right here. Now the S&P is following suit. Very similar. S&P got a topping signal in January. It was slightly higher in February. I'm sorry, that was January. Got the failed breakout. Couldn't clear that area. And again, now we get these back-to-back signals, and we got one there on Friday. Tried to put in a bottom here, it failed. It was a failed signal. Coin got a counter trend on its first rebound. This was just an attempted move, and it failed. It had a similar thing over here. You got a signal here. We had a counter trend, and then it failed, and you went to a new low. Here it went to more extremes, but you have the same type of a signal, very similar to what Bitcoin did. But a similar situation here with the S&P as we had with Bitcoin. Same thing here. Got a bullish signal around the 200 period moving average. Initially tried to rally, it failed, and then we got another one right here. Same thing happened with Bitcoin. A lot of its signals. We're going to rally to the 200. There's resistance right there, or momentum, and then I think we're going to try to flip the trend. Bearish signals up here. Again, we're getting a bullish one here. It's what Bitcoin's doing. And again, we could rally to the 200 and then eventually try to flip the trend back to bullish and try to rally towards a broken trend line and the Fibonacci retracements. Just pointing out, we're getting these bullish signals Friday, very similar to what Bitcoin had previously did a few days earlier, right before it rallied to that 200 period moving average. As we look at the S&P, don't forget we had a 2%, over 2% rally on the S&P, up 117.5 points. The NASDAQ was up 2.61%. Russell was up 2.5%. The Dow was up 1.66. Don't forget, S&P rose by 2%. NASDAQ over 2.5%. The S&P is starting to get some bottoming signals like Bitcoin already got. Bitcoin's now trying to flip the momentum line over the weekend here. Trying to flip momentum. We'll likely see that over the weekend and on into Monday for Bitcoin, and the S&P will follow. I told you S&P is likely going to follow Bitcoin up to the 200. Bitcoin is probably going to break through it here, or it's already trying to, or so slightly break through that, and maybe it does that Sunday or Monday with the decisive break above it. S&P is going to follow Bitcoin. We're going to see green bars here. Do you see the awesome oscillator? It's red. Do you see the bars over here? They're red. My signals continue to remain bearish. We hit support level after support level and broke it. We broke the January low. We broke the rising trend line. Came all the way down to the 200. We even broke that and horizontal support down below the January low from the July peak. We climb above those levels, a new channel in the weekly time frame, which I think is what's taking place. I think our rising wedge broke down and it's evolving into a smaller channel in the larger channel in the weekly time frame. I showed you that briefly. They're viewing the Elliott wave count in Friday's video. So is what I'll be watching. We have the 2% rally here. Got to get back above the 10. Got to get back above the 200. But we're probably going to rally to the 200. And again, you got a gap fill over here. We'll be watching to see if we pull back at the 200 as Bitcoin did. And now Bitcoin's building the momentum to try to plow on through that level. Bitcoin needs a decisive break. The market will follow Bitcoin. Talked about getting above the 200. And we don't even have to necessarily, I mean, in 2000 and 2007, we just kind of busted up through that 200 period moving average. We didn't really get much of a pullback in either one of those cases. Maybe we just do that, but we're going to be looking again for eventually a powerful rally to the 20 period, the blue line, and the 50 period. And again, it's what happened with those previous rallies. And again, if you look at the 2000 and 2007 dips below the 200 period moving average, here, we just kind of blew past it. In 2007, we kind of stalled around it and then blew past it. It really wasn't much of a pullback. Here we just catapulted to that 50 period after that nearly 10.5% sell-off, which is what we've had right now, 2000. And then again, you had that big 17% run-up in less than a month. We had kind of a small pause around it. We rose up in 2007, got the bottoming tail, rose up towards it, and then kind of paused. That's kind of what Bitcoin has done. Bitcoin had a little bit of a pullback. We busted up through it, and then we actually dropped back below it and had the pullback here in 2007. But again, stalling at that 50. So again, I think we're headed to the 50 in the daily time frame, just as we did in 2007 and 2000, and then eventually stalling at it and pulling back above it. But we may go to the 200 and pull back, or pull back a little bit and then go to the 200. But again, I think that we're going to follow Bitcoin to the 200 and then blast on through it. But then we got to flip momentum around. So we've got this 2% over 2% rally. Got to get up here to the 200 period moving average. We broke the downward trend line, which is the decelerating trend line, and we're likely rallying back up towards this trend line, going back to the peak over here, to this peak, just at that 200 period. That's likely where we're going to rally to and then pull back, assuming that we get a pullback. Again, we may get a little one here, but again, we're headed towards this area, and then eventually we're headed towards the 50 period and the 20 period moving averages. But you got to flip the cloud here, and you're probably going to come up here and either try to do it at this rally or pull back and try to do it with the next rally. So again, we'll be watching, but I expect that you're going to see the awesome oscillator bars turn green. They'll probably turn green, and then you'll probably pull back, and you'll probably see some more red and then green, and then in all likelihood a higher low set up. And then the question is, if we just plow on through this, do we plow on through it and get the pullback like that? Or do we come up to the trend line and pull back like that and then plow through it? So again, it could happen a couple different ways. But I think, again, the bottoming signals that we're getting now for the S&P will likely try to flip the momentum and eventually the trend signals back to bullish. Bottoming signals we got for Bitcoin are now trying to flip those momentum signals for Bitcoin. Now, if we're going to get a reversal, we've got to see momentum flip back to bullish. You got to get blue bars, got to get back above the 10-period moving average, red line there, got to get back above the 200. You got to flip the cloud back to green. We had a failed breakout up here. I believe we're going to go back up and test those highs and end up taking them out. I believe this move is corrective. This is not the 20% crash that I've been warning you about that's going to come to kick off the bear market as they've done in the past. This is not it. So we'll be watching for a momentum shift and green awesome oscillator bars next week. NASDAQ is bouncing, hitting a bottoming tail. Remember I told you at the beginning of the week, we'll probably have volatility at the beginning of the week, but by the end of the week, we'll attempt a recovery. NASDAQ did that. We got bottoming tails on the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ in the weekly time frame. Lose sight of the big picture. Now, again, NASDAQ, we again had the failed breakout above the December high. It couldn't get confirmed, and we saw this reversal of conditions with momentum, and we dropped below the 10, and we've been below the 10. The bars have been red. The cloud has been red. Again, we're rallying back up, likely towards the 200-period moving average. We'll fill this gap over here, eventually claw our way back above it, and move towards the 50-period moving average. You're going to be watching for awesome oscillator bars next week, and again, that could very well happen Monday or Tuesday. We're going to have the Fed meeting on Wednesday. I expect the Fed is going to cause the market to rally. They're going to announce the end of quantitative tightening, which I think is very, very possible. Markets would celebrate that and go, oh, QE's next, let's go. They could increase the amount of rate cuts for 2025, and the market would like that. Right now, they've had it at 4, they downsized it to 2. December meeting, we're going to get the projections for the economy and for the estimate for the Fed funds rate. If they raise, or what if they do both? What if they do announce they're going to end quantitative tightening because things are getting concerning for the Fed, so they're going to try in all likelihood to help. So I think they're going to try. I think in all likelihood they're going to announce the end of quantitative tightening. They could do it the next meeting, but I think they're going to do it this one. You couple that with more cuts, even if we don't get more cuts, and we're going to get the projections for how many cuts they're expecting, the dot plot and all the rest of it, could they also change the language in the statement? Powell's running around talking about how strong the economy is. Could they change the wording and give us some hope and sound confident? You know, again, we're going to have a recession. The Fed always does. But I've been watching this 50-week moving average in the trend line. Bitcoin's bouncing off of it. NASDAQ have breached it, and it's just right below it. But if we include the shadow, and this it's hard to see, but if I include the shadow here, then we close pretty much right on the change all the time. This is only a slight breach of this trend line, and you got a bottoming tail hammer. Remember at the beginning of the week, we were down, and I told you we could end the week higher and get a bottoming tail. What happened? We ended the week higher and got a bottoming tail. I told you we could get, volatility at the beginning of the week, but by the end of the week, attempt a recovery, which is now what we're seeing. NASDAQ has breached this trend line. It's pretty much closed right at that trend line or slightly under it, under our 50-period moving average. And I told you, trend lines change all the time. But our low down here, if you connect the low here down to the low here, you've got a nice looking parallel channel still. So again, if we rally back up, a couple of trend lines I'll be watching. Should we get back above the 20-week moving average, back above the 50, back above the 20, do we go back up to the trend line from the July high right here? connected to this peak, excluding the shadow, and then this peak that we had in February. That's a nice trend line right there. Above that is the upper end of this channel. Does the RSI go back up above 50 and we get back above the 50, then you will reaffirm the previous bullish signal if you get a 50-50 buy signal forming. Right now we have a 50-50 sell because we closed slightly below the 50. If you get back above it, it'll cancel that out. Bottoming till, if we get a big rally with the Fed next week, you're going to see likely confirmation. If we go back up to the 200 period or maybe blow past it or something, you're going to see confirmation of this bar. If we get confirmation of a bottoming tail, you get back above the 50, the RSI turns back up in the next week or two, back above 50, then you're going to reaffirm the bullish signal. So again, I still think S&P is going to new highs. Maybe NASDAQ goes back up into this upper channel. Possible. This move does look corrective to me. This is our linear scaling. I'll show you the log right now, but we're bouncing off the 50 previously, and here we've slightly violated the 50, and you're getting a bottoming tail. Are we expanding into a larger channel? I think it's very, very possible. We see D go negative, and that's it. That's all she wrote. Like back in 2022, back in 2007, or do we firm up here and go get one more reference point of a divergence or confirm a lower high? But this is our linear scaling. Let's look at the log scaling. Before I leave here, again, just want to continue to point out the dips below the 50 when we got back above them, and you either bounced off the 50 or tagged the 50 and bounced off of it or moved towards it. The 50 EMA not seen right here. I talked about that. It's acted as support over and over again. Here's the 50 simple moving average, very similar, but the 50 EMA has done a better job, as I've talked about. You see the RSI get back above 50. I think that's going to happen. A channel here at the linear. Let's look at the log. Before I leave this chart, again, this is the 2022 trend line right here that we've slightly violated, and we're closing pretty much very, very close to it, just slightly under it or at it. Could the trend line change ever so slightly from this channel? Now let's look at the log. Now, if we look at the log, perfectly parallel trend line with this low right here. Perfectly parallel trend line with the upper boundary with our log scaling. Okay, and again, this is the log weekly chart for the NASDAQ. If the bottoming tail gets confirmed and we get back above the 50-week moving average in the weekly time frame, we get back above the 200 in the daily time frame, then we'll be looking to see if we try to go up and challenge the highs. This could be a corrective move. Talked about with the S&P 500. Here you're seeing my count. I usually don't show you my count for the NASDAQ. I'm not sure if NASDAQ is going to be able to make new highs because NVIDIA is hit at it turned off major resistance. But this is my Elliott wave count. It's speculation. It's possible that the NASDAQ already peaked. So I talked about the alternative for the S&P 500. I think so. I think you're going to rally back up with the S&P. But again, NVIDIA can't make new highs. That could be problematic for the NASDAQ. That's all I'm saying. But NASDAQ may do it. It may go back up into this upper channel line. But you've got now this push down, breaking the trend line here, breaking the trend line from the 2022 low with the log scaling. We've come back to it with the linear, but with the log scaling, you've broke it. Are we expanding into a channel, a larger channel? Very, very possible. Trend lines change all the time. But this move does look corrective to me. I have to say that. It does look corrective. I don't believe this is the crash yet that's going to kick off the bear market. Fed is going to still do the quantitative tightening, and that buys us a little more time. We just had the inverting and the uninverting of the yield curve again. I think that buys us a little bit more time. Usually that gives you the rally to new highs, and then a few months from now, the recession will begin. But look at these parallel channels now here with our log and our linear scaling. Interesting. I said this trend line broke. And then we still went to new lows, and then we formed a new trend line off of that level right there that eventually we broke out of and had a throwback or back test towards it. So are we doing the same thing here? Do we break this trend line, but then we're going to go still make new highs on NASDAQ? The trend line slightly changing. Very well could be. So in 3.5 weeks, the NASDAQ moves from a failed breakout to getting a bottoming tail at the 2022 trend line, violating the 50, and then possibly expanding into a larger channel, but getting a bottoming tail nonetheless. Interesting. Remember, it was the topping tails that ended up giving us a sell-off. We had those topping tails in the monthly time frame. The question now is this corrective, and we end up going and taking out this high and just, getting, usually the final phase of the blow-off top is the most aggressive, and that's why I've been showing you that chart of the S&P 500 where it just goes, it's a powerful move, both in 2000 and 2007, into new highs after a big drop. The moves seem all that more exaggerated. Do we see that with NASDAQ? It's getting the bottoming tail. So is S&P. So again, this does look corrective to me, I have to say. NVIDIA has a possible bull flag as well. Watching NVIDIA closely because, again, NASDAQ follows it closely. But here, 3.5 weeks, you get a bottoming tail. Monthly on NASDAQ, we had those topping tails. Remember in December, I talked about the topping tail, the gravestone doji, and then we got this spinning top-looking candlestick here the previous month. In February, do we now rebound? Do we, moving with the seasonality? Do we now rebound with the seasonality? The seasonality chart doesn't mean, because it's, going higher towards the end of the year, doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily see that play out. If we enter a bear market, so far we've had volatility in January. We've had a January bottom, and the volatility began in December. We had a rally back up, February high. Okay, that happened, and then now we've sold off. And now here we are in, the first part of March, moving into mid-March. Do we see the seasonality take over into March and April? Last video, I talked about reasons for a rally. Do we see a rally? Do we see hopes of getting all this resolved? Does Europe and United States negotiations and start trying to work things out? See the tariffs paused? What's going on? Very well could. See other deals like with Canada and Mexico and other countries? Food for thought. Taxes help. I've talked about all these things in the last update. Got these topping tails. Is that a top? We need confirmation and a follow through. Okay. We're down right now, but what does the end of the month look like for March? It's not over yet. Do we confirm the bar from our topping tail high in where we did not confirm the bar over here? At least not with a decisive break. Looking at this February bar, do we really get a confirmation below this low right here? And we may not by the end of the month. Attempt a recovery. The chart, NASDAQ 100 right here. By the way, same thing for the Dow, for the S&P 500. It got a topping tail here, but is that just giving us this pullback in this larger corrective move? Is the topping tail going to be confirmed and then get a follow through? And if we do, then we're going to do really major weekly on the S&P. Again, you got a possible channel. We've had a 3.5 week sell-off. We had a failed breakout. Same thing as the NASDAQ. And now you get a bottoming tail. You get these hammer candlesticks. So again, is this, too big, is this hammer going to be confirmed? I think it's going to be. I think you're forming a new channel, and I think you're going to rally to new highs. I think from our low, as I said, last update, I think you're going to rally 15 to 20% higher. I think closer to 20%. I think you're going to go up to the upper end of the channel. Rally 2% off of that low. Is that a hammer? We go back and fill the gap, hit the 200, and then blow past that level and start moving towards the 50-period moving average in the daily time frame. Should we be able to get back above the 200? The S&P is also testing the 50-period moving average. This is a simple moving average. Again, we breached it slightly like NASDAQ. Bitcoin tested the 50-period too, and it's bouncing off of it. Do we follow Bitcoin higher? S&P and NASDAQ, Bitcoin all testing the 50-period moving average. Is the channel, is the rising trend line, which was a bearish rising wedge, is that now expanding and evolving into a channel. I think you got a hammer here. I think you've got a bottom, as I said. Getting bottoming signals for Bitcoin, and now I'm getting them for the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. And if Bitcoin's trying to flip momentum now, and if S&P follows, well, then you're going to likely try to get back above those 200 period moving averages and back above the 50 period here. We closed just slightly below it. Let's look at this weekly chart right here on S&P. Let's look at this with the channel. Again, let's look at our linear and log scaling with the S&P. We saw the channels with the NASDAQ. Let's look at the S&P. Well, we broke the blue trend line right here with our linear scaling from the 2023 low. We broke the trend line right there. But is the trend line expanding now into this channel? And if we exclude the shadow, the bottoming tail, you've got a perfectly parallel channel in the linear with the linear scaling. So again, do we go up and hit that upper boundary here? And again, we have that larger channel from the 2022 level, but does this come into play? I think so. Nobody thinks we're going to go make new highs right now. You thought it back up at the top that, have this soft landing and all this other stuff, and we're going to get all these cuts out of the Fed, and inflation's not going to be an issue. That's what the narrative was until we saw the tariffs rattled the market. That rattled the market previously, and it's rattling the market some more. So again, our linear scaling. Let's take a look at the log. Here it gets even better. Look at the parallel channel that we have perfectly parallel. We've come back to this perfectly parallel line to the upper boundary. Look at the touches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, nearly 5 touches. Just falling short of that one just a little bit there. Going all the way back. Channel for 2023, and this trend line right here. Again, could the rising trend line that broke here with our log scaling, okay, it's already broke. We've come down here. Could that rising wedge be expanding into a channel? I think it is. You're getting a bottoming tail here, and I think if this is corrective and you're going to go make new highs and try to move towards the upper end of that channel. That's what I think is going to happen. Now, this is the log scaling. Now, look at the bigger picture with the log scaling. Okay, here's the channel I just showed you right here, and we have this larger channel. We've talked about this in the previous update. We have this larger channel. It's very, very likely that we're going to get a hammer and bounce. Now, we're going to get a hammer, and we're going to rally back up to this trend line and likely stall around the 50-period moving average and the 20-week moving average, and everybody's going to go, oh, it's a lower high. Pull back off of the 50-period moving average and the trend line just below it or right at it or whatever, and then we'll blow past it and move up into this other resistance area, moving to new highs. That's what I think is going to happen, and it's going to fake everybody out, and then everybody's going to, rush in, fear of missing out. Has our back. That's what the narrative is going to be going forward. The Fed has our back. They're not going to let a recession happen. Come on. The Fed comes out and gives a GDP estimate with a positive number that's relatively decent at the end of 2025. So everybody goes, oh, the Fed, we're going to get this Fed estimate for a negative number, but the Fed's saying we're going to have a positive number for the end of the year. Well, guess what? The negative GDP, and we still could get a negative quarter, followed by a positive quarter, but you didn't get the negative GDP until long after the recession began in 2007. You didn't get the negative GDP until 2008. You saw the same thing happen in 2001. Market had already peaked. If we get a negative number of the GDP, or if it comes in better, and could the GDP be revised back up by the Atlanta Fed? The market's freaking out about that. I told you it was 2.4. What if it's revised back up sharply? It's going to go, oh. And the Fed comes out and says, oh, yeah, we're expecting positive GDP for the end of the year. Good, look at this number. Could that be a catalyst for the rally? See, there's nothing to worry about. We're going to have positive GDP. The Fed's telling us, and we're not going to have a recession. Again, I expect to move back up to this broken trend line and the 50-period moving average. If once we claw our way back above that 200-period moving average in the daily and get back above the 50 here in the weekly. But I think you're going to, again, stall there and then get this powerful move up into this area. But the channel line here, and the trend line right here from the July peak, and if we connect here, you don't quite connect that that December high with the channel, and I think I might have said January earlier. It's a December high. You got it with November and here and here and here. If we exclude the shadow right here, got a nice looking channel. But right here, if we connect the July peak and we touch this point and this point, it's a slightly different, but I mean, they're both pointing up into that same area, the upper end of the channel line. So again, I think you're expanding into a channel that's, I think, going to take you up into this area. I think that's going to be about a 20% move higher. This other channel line, maybe a little bit higher than that. You got the most powerful bull market in history, the longest one. I think that RSI is going to turn back up and get another reference point of divergence, just like we saw with the weekly charts at 2000 and 2007. Powerful moves back up, 10%, 17%. This might be more because, again, now is much more powerful than the previous bull markets. Powerful bull market because of all the QE involved and all of the AI and the stimulus and everything just involved in this bull market. And just going back to the Elliott wave, I think this is corrective. I think you're going to get this push higher into this channel, and then I think you're going to top. The smaller channel in the larger channel, but a beautiful channel. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful channel here with our log scaling.